Which would you choose? A pot of gold or a pot of honey? Many would choose the gold until they figure out how much this is really worth. How much more? Let's find out. Honey, an organic and natural sugar alternative with a unique characteristic of having an indefinite shelf life.
How did this get here?
It's just honey, Barry.
This is stealing!
The history of honey dates back all the way to 2100 BC, where it was first mentioned in the sacred writings of India and Egypt. The collection of honey was evidenced when a cave painting surfaced in Valencia, Spain. The painting showed two hunters collecting honey from a wild bee's nest. When honey was discovered, it became the first and most widespread sweetener used by mankind. During the time, honey was not simply consumed as food, but it was also used to make medicine and even make cement. Honey has had such a great impact on many cultures including India, Greece, and China. It has also appeared with significance in many religions. As of 2017, the global production of honey was at 1.9 million tons, with China being the lead producer at 29% of the world total, followed by other major producers Turkey, Iran, United States, and Ukraine.
Everywhere is honey, there's a honey pool. He's just made of honey, so I guess I'll eat him too.
Honey starts out as a flower nectar waiting to be harvested by a bumblebee. The bee will then break down the nectar into simple sugars and store it inside the honeycomb. Here, it is stored as a source of long-term food supply, only to be used in the cold seasons to come or if food supply is scarce. Naturally, humans have found a way to farm this resource by having swarms nest within man-made hives. The swarm diligently works to produce honey waiting to be collected. Inside the hive, there are three types of bees: the queen bee, the drones, and the workers. Workers are versatile. They range from taking care of the hive to fending off other invading queen bees. The drone simply exists for the purpose of mating with other potential queens. And for the queen, her job is to lay eggs, roughly 1,500 every single day. On average, a hive will produce about 29 kilograms of honey per year. Now, in order to safely collect honey from the hive, beekeepers will typically pacify the bees using a bee smoker. This method releases smoke that causes the bees to become less aggressive and at the same time disable their communications network. The honeycomb is then removed from the hive and the honey is extracted from the comb by either crushing it or using an extractor. The honey is then filtered to remove beeswax and other debris. Due to the composition and chemical properties of honey, it's suitable for long-term storage. Honey and even objects immersed in honey have been preserved for centuries. The key to preservation is limiting the access to humidity. Honey has a sufficiently high sugar content to inhibit fermentation. However, if exposed to moist air, even honey can dilute to the point where fermentation is a possibility. With how sophisticated and long the process is to collect and preserve honey, how is it possible to sell something like this for under $10 a bottle? That's where the process of adulteration comes in. Now, chances are the honey you're having from the store is a version of honey combined with sugars, syrups, and compounds. Adulteration of honey is sometimes used as a method of deception to lead buyers into believing that the honey they are purchasing is pure. However, there are laws to combat this. According to the Codex of the United Nations, any product labeled as honey or pure honey must be a wholly natural product. However, other nations have their own laws concerning labeling. To truly distinguish high-quality honey, you have to judge the fragrance, taste, and consistency. Ripe, freshly collected honey at 68 degrees Fahrenheit should flow from a knife in a straight stream without breaking into separate drops. In jars, fresh honey should appear as pure, consistent fluid and should not set in layers. So how does honey get such an expensive price tag? Harvesting honey is a labor-intensive task, not only for the bees, but for the humans as well. Maintaining the swarm to make sure there's a sufficient amount of honey produced can be a 24/7 job. As a result, beekeepers need to be compensated for their time. Since honey is a natural product, its availability is also subjective to seasonal variations. The type of honey you purchase can also affect the price tag. For example, purchasing a raw honey carries a larger price tag than its counterpart. Raw honey is an unfiltered, unpasteurized honey with a unique profile. Big commercial operations may heat honey to reduce its viscosity. Alongside the filtering process, sometimes they will blend honey from many different suppliers. Because of this reason, raw honey is viewed as more pure and carries a larger price tag. It can also depend on the type of honey, especially if the quantities are extremely limited. Here are a few types of limited honeys. From acacia honey to Manuka, you can enjoy a light clear honey or a special honey sourced from the Manuka bush. However, something as special as Manuka can cost you up to $30 per 250 grams. But it doesn't stop there. Even more expensive than the luxurious Manuka, there exists the Elvish Honey. The name originates from the Turkish name peri bali, which means fairy honey or elves honey. In 2009, a Turkish beekeeper witnessed a swarm of active honeybees at a nearby cave. It was on a mountain northeast of Turkey. He followed the bees inside the cave and discovered many combs hanging from the high walls. With the help of professional climbers and 500 meters of rope, he harvested 18 kilograms of wild honey from the cave. They concluded that the honey was 7 years old with a very high content of minerals from the surrounding cave. 1 kilogram of the honey was purchased from the lab at a price of $50,800. So what is it that makes Elvish honey so valuable? The main factors include the high altitude of the cave, the weather, and the perfect condition within the cave. It is said that the minerals that come from this Elvish honey is similar to that of the Manuka honey, except with elevated levels of antibacterial properties. But here's an interesting perspective. Sarikayar honey is a type of honey that comes from the same geographic location as Elvish honey. Sarikayar honey comes from man-made hives and only costs $35 in comparison. Theoretically, it should provide the same type of nectar as the precious Elvish honey. But does that mean the cave is unique enough to drive such a price difference? I'll let you guys be the judge of that in the comments below.